Grant and I had kind of a relationship over the years where he worked the job where if something went wrong, he needed to be Johnny on the spot. As long as everything was functioning properly, he could just sit there and surf the net, you know? And he would find Summer Singh grooves, Paul Pantone in the Geet fuel processor. And I started looking into this Geet fuel processor because he turned me on to it. And, well, I'll shorten it a bit. My wife and I sold an investment property so we could buy Geet of Pennsylvania. This thing was supposed to run on pickle juice, you know, soda pop, crude oil. And we took a trip out to Salt Lake and actually Price. We met Paul and his wife Molly. We saw different pieces of equipment running on this technology and just went full boogie. I wound up quitting my job a little too soon because Paul was saying, we're going to have the 5 kW gen sets come June, July, and then automotive retrofits by the following January. Well, both dates came and went, and we didn't have any product, and I had quit my job, so I got very proactively involved. I had a Geet on my Duster. It was good for a typical 60 miles per gallon, again, cantankerous. Got a best of 92, 93. But wound up getting involved in R&D. And we got the gen set going, at least. Wound up spending a couple of years in Salt Lake. And I wound up moving up the ladder, involved in R&D, head of R&D. April of 99, President Pro Tem. And then in January of 2000, I walked away. So, my wife and I moved to Virginia. My son was born. And the whole time I'm thinking about this power plate. Because I got really awesome fuel economy. And really awesome power. Both. How can I take this carburetor technology and somehow make it work on the modern port fuel injected engines? Power lines. So July 3rd of 2005, I worked my last day as a truck driver. And I went full-time Powerhouse. That was the name of my speed shop. And I had a special tool made up that I could put my die grinder and I could carve power lines, which I called them, into the intake ports of a cylinder head. And I got so many different vehicles that went from like mid-20s to low 40s and phenomenal power increase. I'm like, score! I think I got this one. And I got to try some really, really interesting ideas. My customers, I would say, look, I'll give you this heck of a discount. I want to try this idea. Give me feedback. Yeah, sure. And so I got to learn a lot of what worked and what didn't work. You know, the dimples in the combustion chamber, the power lines worked, some are seeing grooves, and then some things that didn't work so well, but it helped me progress. Now, I do want to tell one story. A guy in South Florida, Miami area, his username was Dez, and he had an 89 LeBaron coupe, factory 2.5 turbo. So that was a stock 156 horsepower. Once a month, he would make a trip from Miami to Jacksonville and back for work. And he would drive 80 miles an hour because that's what everybody drove. And he would get 25, 26 miles per gallon with the 3-speed automatic. So he decided he was going to, just tackle this thing and beef it up. Now, there was a well-known recipe. You use, these injectors, this turbo, this intercooler, this custom tune. If you just use a stock top end, no port work, it was good for 265 horsepower. I mean, you think about it. That's, 150 to 260. That's not bad. If you have a good ported head, you may see well over 300. In fact, the recipe said, we've seen upwards of 360 horsepower with a top-notch ported head. I bring this up because he showed me dyno sheets where he was putting out 430 horsepower. So that's 70 horsepower more than the recipe called for. Not bad. And he went from mid-20s going to Jacksonville and back to low 40s. 430 horsepower, and he's getting, like a 50%, 60% gain in fuel economy. Well, my speed shop was doing well, and one evening I get this phone call. A somewhat familiar voice on the other line says, "Well, hello, my name is Dennis Lee. Are you familiar with me?" I said, "Yes, sir." Basically, I had seen what was on the internet. I knew some people who had worked with them, and I didn't like them. Based on that, I didn't like them. He says, "We're trying to release a hydro assist fuel cell, but the computer's fighting us. We know the computer's fighting us. And a mutual friend of ours has not only asked me to call you, but insisted and asked for help. Are you willing to help?" Well, at the time, we had our fuel economy blog, and we had our fuel economy forum, mpgresearch.com. And I said, it sounds impressive. I'll give you what I'm giving everybody else for free. I don't want to work for you. I don't want to be involved, but I'll give you what I'm giving everybody else. So there was a couple of phone calls. He recorded one, had his tech guys on the line, and then they couldn't make it work. So he asked me to come out to New Jersey. I was living in Pennsylvania. He asked me to come out to New Jersey so I could get hands-on with the tech guys, and let's make this work. So I'm out here, and we're doing some things. And one Friday evening, he hired a local guru. This guy drove around in a Hummer with like $250,000 worth of very high-tech equipment in the back. When the local shop had a problem vehicle they just could not figure out, they'd call him. He would come by, he would diagnose it. If that fixed it, pay the bill. And it was a hefty bill. If I misdiagnosed it, you don't owe me anything. Well, Dennis tells me, "I want you to ask this guy questions. I want you to throw your ideas past him, your theories. Because, if ever there's a guru, this guy's it, man. So pick his brain. I am paying him to spend this Friday evening with you so he can pick your brain. You can pick his brain and just verify everything." So, okay. Well, in addition to that, he was also being paid to filter me. See if I knew what I said I knew. And at the end of the evening, Dennis goes up to him and he says, "So what do I owe you?" The guy says, "Nothing. You bought me dinner, and I learned so much from your guy. That's information you cannot get anywhere. You don't owe me a thing, man. I'm good as is." Well, I got hired on the spot. So we worked through this HFC program, and we had snags, we had some issues, but one by one, we were tackling them, we were nailing them, we were overcoming, and it was happening, man. Until the FTC came along. We'd been running full-page ads in 13 national magazines, and the FTC came along and brought fraud charges against Dutchman Enterprises. I still remember going in front of Judge Shipp, and Judge Shipp asked the prosecutor, Josh Millard, "So how many complaints do you have against the defendant?" There was silence. Let me reiterate. How many complaints do you have with the FTC or attorneys general at any level, or just newspapers, forums? Who said that these guys aren't delivering? How many complaints do you have? None, Your Honor. Then why did you bring this case to my courtroom? Bottom line is, it did go to court, and I have the transcript, the original transcript, which is no longer the official transcript, that gave us a score of 7-0. The prosecutor didn't even get one notch. It was 7-0 our favor. And then we were informed that the transcripts were corrupted, both primary and secondary. And I think it's the only federal case in U.S. history where both primary and secondary transcripts somehow got corrupted to where they were unusable. So the judge said, I have no choice. My hands are tied. We're going to have to do this over. We're going to have to recreate the trial. But if you want to change expert witnesses or change your claims, I'll allow that. Some do over. Bottom line is, it never did go back to court, and through it all, I became recognized as a fuel economy expert by the U.S. federal court system.